Welcome to the We Are CC podcast. Thank you everyone for joining us for episode 3 of Into the Metaverse. I'm Tom Crown, joined by champion chartist Poppy, Chop Trader Oz, and the lord of the JPEGs himself, Mr. Mister. We want to give a special shout out tonight to Mr. Rex for his amazing audio editing for the last episode. We really need all the help we can get here. After the show tonight at 8 p.m., I want everyone to be aware there will be more NFT content as the first NFT Roundup show will premiere here on Reddit and Discord. The show will feature guests from NFT projects and platforms to discuss the recent news. When it comes to NFTs, guys, I think I might be the least informed person here today, so I'm looking forward to learning alongside with everyone out there. Poppy, can we start off with some market talk? I know you have something spicy to share with us today.
Yes, sir, I do, Mr. Tom Crown, and good to be back. Thank you, everyone, for coming out. So first thing, let's talk about the current market conditions. Not much has changed from last week in terms of price, but something that a lot of people may not have been aware of has changed, and it's very spicy. Something a lot of crypto traders, crypto investors don't always think about is semantics. What do I mean when I say semantics? We're talking about the mood, the emotional state, the psychology of the market. You know, last week we talked about the cycles of greed and fear, and that is a semantic analysis of the market, right? How greedy it is, how fearful it is. But there are other ways to look at semantics. And one of the ones that I always recommend people watch, not necessarily because it's tradable information, but it can indicate the tide is changing in the market. And this is Google Trends. So Google, despite the numerous competitors out there over the past few decades, is still the king of search. And so you can learn a lot about society's current mind state by seeing what people are searching for. In this case, Bitcoin. If you were to go into trends.google.com and you were to put in Bitcoin, you would see a pattern where the searches for the word Bitcoin seem to almost mirror the cycle of bull markets and bear markets perfectly. When we're in a bull market, you see that trend go up and up and up because people are FOMOing in. When I say FOMO, that's the fear of missing out, which is a big driver of bull markets. People see Bitcoin going up and they think, oh man, I don't want to miss out. What if it goes to 100K this year? What if it goes to $1 million? I got to get some. What's been interesting is ever since spring of 2021, that search trend has been on a downtrend. And it's basically, if you look at the chart, there's a support level during the bull market where the trend never went below that, meaning the interest in Bitcoin was elevated. And then we hit sometime Q2 to Q3 of 2021, and it dropped below that. And it stayed there until this week. And this week, it had a massive rally. And you can go and you can look it up yourself. But Tom, what are your thoughts seeing something like this after almost, 8 to 9 months of really a lack of interest from the market in terms of searches, right? People just aren't interested in Bitcoin. And now suddenly out of the blue, prices dropped into this level where it's at. And now people are interested again.
It's been a brutal 9 months. I think everybody can agree with that. I've watched it as a creator myself. I follow trends all the time. In fact, it's a really great way to see what's on kind of the market's mind, if that makes sense. It's absolutely a good thing to see some search return. Search really is just the reflective of the overall interest in the topic. As I said, it's very important, I think, to all creators. When we do see kind of peak low levels of interest, we have seen that correlate with the market at swing lows. Typically at swing highs, that's when we see explosive search results, new people searching more often for kind of competitive keywords. And so I definitely will side with you there that to see search return for Bitcoin, for cryptocurrency, that is in the right direction for a rebound or some kind of reversal here.
And you can actually take it a little bit further than just saying Google Trends. I mean, Google Trends are interesting and they're a lot of fun to play with. For example, if you're looking for a way to entertain yourself for a little bit, go and search each of the layer one alternatives to Ethereum. You could even put Ethereum in, put Ethereum, put Avalanche, put Solana, Tezos, Algo, anything that you're interested in. And you can almost see their kind of popularity and their cycles within the market mapped out there as well. But you also see from a semantic perspective, what has people's attention. It's still Ethereum, right? At the end of the day, it still is the king in just the same way that Bitcoin, if you were to put Bitcoin on a chart with virtually any other coin, it's always at the top as well. Because, and this goes back to last week, we were talking about attention. Attention is that number one commodity that a project needs. If they don't have your attention, they don't have your money, they're probably not going to succeed. And this is actually super, super true for the NFT space, which is what we're going to be talking about today. We're going to be talking about NFTs. We're going to be talking a little bit about Metaverse. And so I think if we want to maybe step into that as our next topic, let's start with the very basics. What is an NFT? So the term itself, non-fungible token, in essence, that it can't be duplicated. There can't be two of it. In terms of fiat, you can always print more dollars, but in theory, if I were to mint, say, a picture of Tom Crown's face, that is the only one, because on the blockchain, that is locked in as that particular record on the chain. So you could always try and make a copy of his face, but the original one is logged there for all of eternity.
Poppy, so for fungibility, do you mean kind of like every dollar is a dollar, right? They're all the same. It doesn't matter which dollar you have, with exception, maybe a rare antique dollar. But for the most part, dollars are just dollars. When these non-fungible tokens are not like that, Bitcoin is almost like the dollar concept of every Bitcoin is the same, one unit, let's say. But these tokens of NFTs, they're the opposite of that. It's not like a million Ethereum tokens. It's a million different assets. Would that be a good way to describe it?
Yeah, and that actually does play into more of the traditional side of crypto too when we talk about fungibility. I know one of the hot topics, especially for governments, the ability to track things across cryptocurrency chains. On the other side of that, the ability for certain projects to be able to hide information. So maybe, Tom, before we get into NFTs, maybe we could just talk a little bit about something like Monero, right? Because Monero, which is like what they call privacy token, the reason that people like it is kind of what you were just referring to. If, let's say that someone was involved in something illicit, perhaps they were buying drugs or something, and they were to use Bitcoins to do that, and then the government gains possession of those Bitcoins when they raid the drug dealer's house. In theory, they could always track those coins. They could even block those particular coins if they wanted to, right? I mean, there's certain...
That'd be difficult.
Well, yeah, maybe block wasn't the right term.
The thing that would be the most logical is if there's no privacy, they can see where the coins have gone. And if they move to account associated with someone, they're identified, kind of thing. With a privacy coin, though, that's harder to do. I'm all about privacy. It's important to the space.
Well, if I can jump in here, guys, for in terms of like, the way, fungibility, all these technical terms, right? What are the, ERC designations? For me, what fungibility means is, for example, you have a dollar, you have a Bitcoin, right? I could take my dollar out of my jacket pocket, I could take it out of my safe, I could take it out of the bank, and 5 of those dollars, no matter where I got them, when I got them, they'll always be worth $5, right? So they're kind of like interchangeable. And hey, I'll just pay you out of $2 from my pocket, $2 from my safe, and $2 from whatever other place it is that I just said it came from. But like for an NFT, for example, the thing is there should only ever be that one original NFT, right? Even if there is a copy of a picture out there that's, somebody right click, saves, and creates a new JPEG and mints that as an NFT, you do have a sense of which one was the original just because it's based on the first one that's on the blockchain, right? So in that way, you can't just take like an NFT from my pocket and an NFT from my safe and be like, okay, well, these two are the same. Why don't I just, swap them out and pay you however you want? Not even getting to the back yet of the differential value of NFTs, right? You have a wide range of valuations per NFT. And that also makes it so that you can't just take NFT A out of my pocket and NFT B out of my safe and be like, they're worth the same, they're interchangeable. Because they're not interchangeable, they're different pictures, ostensibly, they're different values. So there's that uniqueness out of it, right? Just based on that non-fungibility, that non-interchangeability.
Uniqueness, that's a good word, I think, for people to understand the NFT world. Uniqueness, because dollars and Bitcoin, Ethereums and Moneros, they're not unique. They're all a unit. Like I said, I think that's a great word. I've never actually heard anyone put it that way. But maybe we should steer a little more onto NFTs. So pretty much the extent of what I know is most NFTs were on Ethereum. Now we're seeing some other chains pick it up. But on Ethereum, they were ERC 721, like tokens, right? So it is kind of similar to a coin on a chain. And I think that non-fungibility really is the difference. They're not just a pool of the same asset.
Yeah, exactly, right. They're based on the Ethereum protocol, so that's where that ERC designation comes from. And there's like a laundry list of different kinds of designations. Everybody will probably at first at least be initially familiar with ERC 20, kind of the OG, right? But I mean ERC 677, and then you get into 721s, and that therein starts that whole NFT designation. I think that really is why there's that special kind of specific designation for an ERC 721 to be called an NFT, a non-fungible token, because that is a pretty unique token model within the Ethereum ecosystem.
Yeah, and if you think about it, at the end of the day, all of this fungibility, non-fungibility, NFTs, ERC, all we're really saying is what an NFT is it's a digital asset that represents a variety of objects. It could be some form of artwork, it could be music, it could be items in a video game, like maybe different outfits or in-game items like weapons, or it could even be videos. And then even beyond that, people are working on utility. So you might have for example, and I don't know if this exists, but I know this is something I've read about before, which is, let's say you have a picture that the qualities of the picture change as the market price changes for Bitcoin, right? So there's a lot of really clever things you can do. But at the end of the day, it's a data standard. It's a cryptocurrency data standard, initially born from Ethereum.
As far as use cases and different ways of bringing that quote unquote utility to NFTs, I think there is a lot of potential here, right? Right now, we're focused on gaming models and the media models, and I think those are all sound, right? I'm not too bigly invested myself in terms of the media side of it, but I think there's a huge opportunity in leveraging this non-fungible blockchain verifiable aspect of ERC 721 or NFTs in general, which is the potential for it to really be able to bridge us between Web3 and the real world, really, right? Because what does an NFT represent? It represents a stamp on a moment of time that verifies ownership of something. Right now, we're talking about that ownership being maybe it's a CryptoPunk, right? Or maybe it's when you earned that shield for a game, right? Or maybe you earned a new costume or avatar, or you up-leveled the resolution of your JPEG. That certainly exists today, and I think those are valuable models. Think about what the implications here are when that can be applied to real-world assets, right? Like real estate. Maybe you don't need a pink slip for your car because that pink slip now exists digitally on the blockchain. All the way to there are, I'm sure this is not relevant for, most people, but, just from my own perspective, there's a lot of fine wine markets out there, right? Where people put up for auction and bid on these rare wines that have huge values. And a lot of that value is tied to the fact that that wine, the provenance of that wine, the all the way through from supply chain to the winery to where it was stored and distributed, that is all verified, and that verifiable chain of information is intact, and you can be reasonably assured that this 1981, right, or 1960 bottle of Bordeaux is authentic. What if you could identify that bottle and authenticate that bottle through an NFT and take ownership of that bottle through an NFT, right? And that's just one of the potential opportunities I think out there. So super excited to see where this goes.
Makes perfect sense.
Mm-hmm.
Wine's a great example, like with the time stamp, because that's important. It's you didn't just put another label on it.
Yeah, don't steal my idea, but that's I would.
It's already stolen.
Okay, let's talk after, Tom.
Yeah, I've actually seen quite a few crypto projects of various sorts pop up related to alcohol. I think people love anything related to that. Let's kind of roll back a little bit and let's talk some more basics about NFTs. So what is an NFT gallery? If you haven't traded NFTs, but you might have heard of something like OpenSea, right? Which is just basically a D app, a decentralized app. Well, some of them are decentralized, right? Some of them not so decentralized. But in any case, a web app that reads the NFT standard on chain, and they put those NFTs for display so that you can trade them on the website. So, for example, if you were to log in with your Ethereum wallet to something like Rarible or OpenSea, which are two galleries out there on Ethereum, those apps will read your Ethereum address. They'll look in and they'll say, okay, you have these 10 NFT files. I'll display those, and then you can sell, buy, trade those. And there's NFT marketplaces on virtually all of the layer ones and layer twos at this point. I think some of the most active NFT communities, you're looking at Ethereum and Polygon, which kind of go hand in hand, right? Because Polygon is a layer 2, meaning a kind of scaling option for Ethereum. That's always going to be your top destination for NFTs. The drawback there being that Ethereum is quite expensive. Even to get onto Polygon, you're going to have to bridge your money to it first, which costs gas. Then the next two, you're looking at some like Solana or Tezos. Both have very active NFT communities. And there's definitely others, virtually all of them. I've traded NFTs on so many different chains that it's hard to keep track. And looking over the past few years, NFT market trends, right? So where did it really start? You actually got to go back quite a few years. Some of the earliest NFT projects were stuff like CryptoPunks, right? You've probably seen those, which are just these little pixelated pictures of faces that now sell for hundreds of millions of dollars. It's really, really quite incredible. To more recently, over the past, really just the past year, I think, 2021 and beyond, you're looking at stuff like the Bored Ape Yacht Club, which I'm sure everyone's heard about. Stuff like Unstoppable Domains or ENS, where you have a domain on the blockchain. Like a lot of people have a name. You might have seen it. It'll be like tomcrown.eth, right? That's in ENS, an Ethereum like name service or something like that. So it's basically like a website on Ethereum's chain. Or stuff like NBA Top Shots or So Rare. If you're into football, soccer, also very popular. People love their sports. I was reading about a LeBron James NFT that sold for like $200 million, which is just incredible to think about.
Poppy, I have a question for you.
Sure.
So, we're traders. I don't know how actually into NFTs you are. I think probably more than me, but I guess my thought process I guess I'm going to be a boomer here too in the space is, I'm used to what I'm used to, right? And so these NFTs to me, there's an interesting trade where I'm taking, Ethereum, I guess is the best example for right now, Ethereum, and I'm trading it for these, I see them as images, but there's more to them. I don't want to simplify them as images, but essentially another asset, right? I'm trading my Ethereum for it. I question or I wonder, is there like an assumption that asset is then going to outpace that Ethereum? I think that's a trade-off that people maybe aren't even aware of when they're making it. It's like a bet that this asset will outperform the Ethereum, right?
You're right. You're right. I don't even want to say gamble, because gambling is what you do when you make uninformed decisions in the crypto space. But there are a lot of gamblers out there that might chase every single NFT.
Oh, we love our gambling.
Exactly, and they might say, "I'm just gonna ape into everything I see. If one of them sticks and one of them turns out profitable, I've made my money back." It doesn't always work out, but yeah, you're essentially trading one asset for another. It's no different than, say, trading from Ethereum into, say, Solana, and hoping that Solana is going to outperform your Ethereum during whatever period you've held it. And it's absolutely no different here, except instead of buying a coin, you're buying perhaps a unique one of one type, artwork or music or an asset in a video game. I remember,
and kind of coming.
Oh yeah, go ahead.
No, just kind of tying it back to the whole idea of, value. I think, yeah, there's that trade-off between Ethereum, the asset, Ethereum, the currency that you trade or swap into Solana or an NFT. That is, I think that's inherent to trading on Ethereum. And then you layer on, hey, is this gas that I'm spending my asset on, am I going to outpace, right, with my investment, the cost of this gas? It's a huge problem right now. But I think
that's been one of the main barriers for me.
Yeah, absolutely.
I haven't touched the Ethereum chain in a year because I'm not a big enough of a whale to be burning $100, just to make a position. I'm used to my 0.5% trading fees or something, right?
Tom, I'm feeling judged here. I wasted so much money on gas.
Gas fees are really insane.
I haven't made a single TX.
You invested all that money.
I invested that all in Vitalik.
Yeah, I was saying
yes.
I was saying that also though about like Uniswap and such. It's like I want to use these things, but I'm not gonna pay that just to even have to even start. That's been my kind of barrier so far, really.
Yeah, and you actually, what, that's a good point. So let's say you want to get into NFTs, but you don't want to pay the gas fees, or you can't. And this is true for DeFi as well. And we talked a little bit about DeFi last week. So what are your options? Your options are look at layer twos. For example, with OpenSea, they have integrated Polygon, or Matic, as some people know it. And that's essentially a gas-free ecosystem. The challenge there is that you have to bridge your Ethereum from the Ethereum chain to Polygon. So that in itself will cost you gas to get onto it. But once you're on it, it's infinitely cheaper to use. Another alternative is you go to the alternate chains. Stuff like Tezos is incredibly cheap compared to Ethereum. Stuff like Solana. But keep in mind that the NFTs you find on those other chains are going to be different than the NFTs you find on, say, Ethereum. Each one of them has their own unique NFTs. There may be similar ones, and there often is. People love to do apes and monkeys, for example, because the Bored Ape Yacht Club took off and it was so popular. Another one that you're going to see on virtually every chain is punks. Everyone wants to have, an 8-bit, 16-bit pixelated PFP. I'm not going to lie. Even like Mr. If you're looking on Reddit right now, his PFP is actually from an artist that I'm not going to name. I don't want to shill, but it's from an artist that does ASCII, ASCII. It's like 20, 30-year-old kind of primitive computer stuff, but it's from an artist that does a variation of punks based on ASCII fonts. It's kind of exciting though at the same time, because when you start to drift among the different chains, you also see something like a different style and different community of NFT artists on each one.
Something we should can I point out something, guys, is that definitely opens the door to scams, right? So if I make Bored Apes on, and I believe ADA just started NFTs as well, I might be wrong, but if I start Bored Apes on ADA, and I'm not going to, but I guarantee there are going to be people who are going to try to copy the popular, like the Bored Apes, this is crypto. We got to be careful, right?
Yeah.
Have you guys seen this happening?
I can see the Discord DMs now, right? It's the announcement from the Bored Ape Yacht yacht club, and they've just launched on a different chain, and come get it.
They're tricky.
I don't know of any myself. Yeah, definitely tricky. But speaking of scams, I'll sell you my NFT here for 2E.
Yeah, I mean,
Right, Tom?
whatever it is, as long as it's worth more than that.
Well, no, it's I borrowed it from Poppy, so that's where the scam comes in. Sorry.
That is one of the things. So that's where you start to have that discussion of where is the line between decentralization and centralization. Where do you draw that line? Where do consumers, because at the end of the day, as much as we love the science and the tech behind crypto, it still has to be consumer friendly to see that mass adoption. There is a very fine line between supporting that vision of a truly decentralized future and kind of, I hate to say it, but the benefits, right, of having some centralization, because if you centralize some resources, for example, on OpenSea, they do have some copyright infringement protections in there. So if I were to take a picture of a Bored Ape, I believe, don't go and test this and blame me if you get banned or something, but I believe if you put it on there, they do have protections against duplicating images onto other pictures, but they can only control that on their app because all of this data sits on the Ethereum chain. And no one can control a decentralized chain like that. It's impossible, right? I think, the creators of Ethereum would have to add in some sort of special, copyright protection protocol to do that. And I don't know what the feasibility is of that, but yeah, it sounds like a risk, and it's a challenge. I think this is a step forward because before you had these ERC tokens for NFTs, what was your option? And I say this is a very amateur artist. Something that happened to me about 10 years ago was some of my artwork. I used to have an online gallery. Some of my artwork on there, digital art, was stolen and used to advertise this other company's stuff, and they had it all over their website. I was never contacted about it. I was never paid for it.
That was me.
Coming in fast forward all these years later, and I see the promise of NFTs, and to me, that is something that at least is laying a foundation. It's one thing to be able to say, I find my art somewhere, I contact them with a letter from my lawyer and say, hey, you need to take this down. This belongs to me. But it's another to be able to say, hey, I own the NFT for this, and somehow have kind of a protection against you being able to put it up on a website, like maybe the website flags it.
So remove it from your PFP because it's my NFT, right?
Yeah.
Well, that's what the blockchain provides, is at least a proof. You can date and time and stamp. That's a big theme in blockchain. Time stamping, saying I had this first. So I think it even requires a centralized body after that. Whether that's a court system or something to say, yeah, you do. You have proof that you had this first. It's weird how the decentralized and centralized do depend on each other a little bit.
There are benefits. And, Twitter recently rolled out the option to verify your PFP on chain, right? I don't know if you had a chance to do that, Tom.
I have one.
Did you do it?
You haven't looked at my profile, my Twitter in months, Poppy. I'm sad. It's been like maybe 2-3 weeks. I have the hexagon. I just wanted to do it because you could.
Mm-hmm.
I think it might be a little silly in practice because I could just make an NFT that's something else, and then people won't put in the effort to go see that it's not the real one. But I had an NFT of myself that I made a long time ago just to try it out. Someone bid on it, and then the ETH fee was higher than the bid, and so eventually it expired. But I made that my PFP, and I like just having the hexagon. I love Twitter. I love Twitter because they're at least trying.
Yeah.
And it's cool to see that kind of value proposition popping up organically, right? And sure,
Yep.
Mr. Jack there is definitely a flag bearer for crypto BTC, right? But I think it's really interesting to see where folks are looking to extract that value out of NFTs, right? Because it's not just, sure, I hope I can sell this picture of a pixelated frog for a little bit more than I bought it for down the line. But now, hey, there's bragging rights on first two. You can use it as a PFP that's verifiable on chain, and now it becomes part of your identity. And, I think that's really, really relevant for the conversation we're having today with the metaverse, right?
It's clearly in demand.
It's clearly in
It's
demand.
clearly,
Absolutely.
Twitter is a first mover because of Jack. But now we're seeing, I'm a YouTube guy. You guys know I love my YouTubes. YouTube is now looking at NFTs. It seems like companies can't keep up. They're all looking to jump into it, and they're looking for, the icon to use as NFTs, the PFPs. I wonder why. What you're talking about value proposition? Where's that value for like YouTube? For Nike, they could sell some, but that doesn't seem like the real goal.
Well, here is the thing, and I do know that these kinds of ideas are being worked on right now. I wish I was working on them, but there is a huge marketing angle with NFTs because if you think about how NFTs are distributed, they're basically distributed into unique wallet addresses, right? So in that world, you can start to have a one-to-one relationship between a brand via their wallet address and every single consumer that touches their brand through an NFT.
That's brilliant.
Think about the direct marketing potential there.
Billions.
Right? Think about how email works. You can't stop an email from coming in. Sure, you can filter it with spam filters, and Google's getting really good at that. Well, they were. But anyway, that's a whole different topic. But think about using NFTs to market, to send offers. And I think what we're seeing now is all just, whether it's Budweiser or, it's NBA Top Shots, I think it was really kind of started by Taco Bell, right? I think that's where the mainstream adoption and kind of the corporate marketing value proposition lies. That's hat tip to Taco Bell. They started early, and I think basically, if you think about it, by them giving away all those NFTs early days, they built a massive list of wallets that now can stand in place of an email address.
Digital identity.
So, digital identity, man. Absolutely.
I never thought of it that way. That's brilliant. Of course, it literally what's going on right now with all of our data, and this is a much more concrete anchor for companies to build on and to market to. I'm thinking like airdrop coupons or something. Oh, your NFT, you just got a 20% off Burger King, like that.
Totally.
That's smart. You're gonna see it. You're gonna see the transaction. It's coming right to you. They know it's going to you or the owner of the NFT. That's really smart. I'm blown away. I'm floored.
Yeah, that's a little bit of alpha. I was working on a project kind of like that a little bit back in the day, but it didn't really go anywhere. But I think I really do. I'm super excited to see where that goes. I'm also super interested to hear what our resident Zoomer thinks about the whole NFT as marketing idea.
Yeah, well, I mean, we've seen a few big brands competing for it right now, and while maybe it's just, a publicity stunt, they're like, hey, we're in this area. Just like how companies were probably, flexing that they were in Web 2, this is going to be the whole new thing. They're going to flex that they're in a Web 3, and they're all, hip and trendy. So, I think it's not just the fact that it could be a marketing stunt. It could also, have some good utility for them. So, maybe they're just testing the waters for now, giving simple discounts or coupon codes. Places like, I think, AMC and Game, which is a very, hot topic with lots of people on Reddit right now, or, previously. So they're trying to take, all the angles at once and just test in the waters, see how it can be worked. But in the future, they might turn to more utility. And I think for big companies, it'll be especially, proven how well it works because they have the biggest audience right now. They don't just have to appeal to the crypto sphere. They can actually bring new people in and, have a whole new light on it just because they're already a big company.
So Oz, are NFTs hip? Are they lit? Are they cool?
I think they're pretty cool, yeah. I mean...
They're pretty lit, all right.
Yeah, of course. You want to see grandmas playing with NFTs.
Are they based?
I don't know. It depends on the NFT.
That'd be an interesting thought. Do people see these as a cool thing, or is it a counterculture? They're not cool. I think that's an important insight.
I don't know. I mean,
or maybe not quite there yet. Maybe people aren't really talking about them.
Yeah, I mean, crypto is already on the news a lot. You'll see news stations like BBC, the massive ones, and CNN, they'll always be talking about crypto in some sort of segment, normally just about Bitcoin, but now you're starting to slowly see them ease their way into NFTs as well. So NFTs are kind of being normalized. So it may be a little bit less cool in the future months.
As someone who's followed the news maybe every day for years in crypto, you had the right description. It's mostly about Bitcoin, and then other coins have kind of filtered in over the years. But I think it's about 1-to-1 right now. I see what I consider crypto posts, what I consider Bitcoin posts, and then what I consider NFT posts. And honestly, distribution's pretty strong. It's pretty even. I'm surprised by that. NFTs is clearly attracting an audience that I never would have saw coming in 2021, 2022.
Yeah, the adoption has been really fast. I mean, even coins related to NFTs, not specifically for hosting NFTs, but even coins like Gala and Sand, no one to show obviously, but those two coins, they have a strong basis with NFTs and the metaverse in general, and they've been doing really well, even if they don't facilitate, NFTs necessarily, like ETH does, they still find the utility for them. So people really like that kind of stuff.
Talking about NFTs, so I went to a conference in Miami late last year, and they were talking about the metaverse. It was the biggest topic at the NFT conference for some reason. I'm confused. I'm still learning this stuff. How do they fit in, and how about if anyone has a good explanation, what is the metaverse?
I think I could probably explain it. Basically, the metaverse is a collection of online hubs, kind of. It's like a collective group. They're not joined together. They're separate entities, of course. You have the big names like Decentraland, which is the one that's been around for the longest, I think, at the moment. And then you have Sandbox, and you have the Roblox metaverse. That big companies like Nike, I think Lamborghini, something to do with them as well. There's quite a few brands there. So you have multiple metaverses, obviously not limited to those 2 or 3, but there's a few metaverses, and it's like a social hub where you can go and just talk to people, chill out, or
Club Penguin.
Do whatever. I mean, yeah, it's similar to Club Penguin. Yeah, you have your own little area, but then you can go to other areas and you can kind of teleport all over the place. You don't need to be in a fixed location all the time.
What makes it different from I have a Quest 2. What makes it different from Quest 2's chat room kind of thing?
Well, if I could jump in, actually,
sure.
I think that's a great example of a use case of a quote unquote metaverse, right? Which is having that virtual gathering space with your virtual avatar, right? I think the hub example that Oz is speaking to really just builds on top of that idea, right? It's this virtual community, it's this virtual identity, right? We're already seeing that with Twitter. We're already seeing identity authentication through NFTs. And as part of the metaverse, the NFTs can serve as not just your identity, but it can authenticate ownership of what you own in this virtual community, virtual world, right? For me, and I might be dating myself here, but the idea of a metaverse is not new.
Agreed.
Right. And it is just basically this evolution, and we've applied a new term that sounds super cool to it. But we've been dealing with metaverses for
Preach.
dare I say decades, right? We started with The Sims. I think that was that you could buy your up levels on your character, on your property. We had Second Life, which took that to the next level. It was immersive. You could go in there and you own property, and we saw real estate in Second Life actually becoming valuable in the real world in terms of real dollars, right? And then you fast forward a couple decades or a decade and a half, and you start to really see how technology is now able to, it enables this really maybe more final version, or what was initially that huge vision of what a metaverse could be, right? It is that one-to-one interaction. And Yeah, Tom, we should hop on Quest for sure. Let's get in one of the chat rooms where Tom and I could be chatting face to face with our avatars, right? And maybe that avatar is authenticated by your NFT, and it is actually my pixelated avatar there, and it's Tom's.
My
You
NFT.
know, I don't know what you call that. Is that your WSB? What you got on Reddit there? Your WSB variant? I think that's super cool.
It's my diamond hand.
Your diamond hands. That's what it is.
They got the good skins, man. People have given me so much crap about it. Won't get into it, but it's just diamond hands. It's just diamond hands, and it's got shades. Get out of here.
I've seen you getting the hate on Reddit, but diamond hands and laser eyes, man. I feel like that. You know why we didn't hit 100K this year? I'm just going to go on record. It's because you guys took the laser eyes off your PFPs.
I never did. I never will.
So an interesting thing about Metaverse is, and we're talking about it kind of in terms of gaming, right, or even crypto, but you guys got to think one of the largest companies in the world, one of the most successful tech companies, renamed their company to Meta because of the Metaverse. Facebook, right? They adopted the name Meta, and not just them. All of the big companies are looking at this. Microsoft this past week acquired one of the largest gaming companies. This actually might have been the largest acquisition of a gaming company ever. Microsoft purchased Activision Blizzard.
Mm-hmm.
And when
historic for the space.
So. Yeah, I mean, that's massive company. And they said that a big part of driving that decision was that this was helping them to gain a foothold in the metaverse. This is the quote from Microsoft. So what does that tell us? That tells us that it's not just about the games. It's not just about social media. It's also just about all aspects of society. I joked about it last week, and I said something about Microsoft Teams kind of metaverse, but I was being serious. That is a direction that they want to go in, and I don't think that that's an unreasonable direction to expect. I mean, if you'd gone back just a couple years ago, the idea of so many people working remotely was kind of a like, wow, that would be nice, but I don't think it's going to happen or it's practical. When COVID hit, everyone started working remote. We realized, you know what, it's actually not that hard. So why wouldn't the next step be to build these kind of virtual workspaces? You know, when you're working, you're at your virtual desk. You could share presentations. You could share files, kind of like taking SharePoint and Microsoft Teams and all these other products and building them into some sort of universe. And maybe they build it into Halo, and you could call in the Master Chief to help you do a presentation.
Yeah, and I think that remote working thing, Poppy, is a really good example of the value proposition that corporate America is going for. Sure, there's the marketing angle, but the collaboration really that it could unlock is massive. And think about being able to authenticate your identity instead of having to go into your two-factor, right? Maybe it's your RSA key. It could be as simple as connecting your wallet, right? As long as your wallet is 2FA'd, then you connect your wallet and you authenticate yourself as employee 1, and I'm now chatting with employee 2. We know we're real, right? That is important when you're remote working to know that that person on the other side of that chat window is the person you're potentially discussing confidential information with, right?
Yeah, and then be able to follow up with them. I've called my ISP a million times to a question mark name, and then they hang up on you and they're gone.
Right. I mean, because they don't want to put in the work, right? But I mean, if it's decentralized, if it is built in the Web3 ethos, I think there's tremendous value there. I did want to go on record, right? And you touched on it a little bit, Poppy, as far as you see these big guys coming in. You see the Facebook/Meta. You see the Microsofts coming in. Where is it going to go? You know, just quick prediction. Definitely only a matter of time before you see Amazon and Alphabet jump in. Alphabet/Google, right? Would be worth tracking. I think the investments that Google Ventures and their partners in Palo Alto are going to be making into this space. What worries me, guys, I just want to go on the record. I think there is potentially a bad road to go down with metaverses being integrated into these tech behemoths that make their money on data. right? Because
That's why they're jumping in.
that's why they're jumping in, and I think that is a little bit concerning because, as Oz was saying, we're seeing the metaverse being this decentralized hub of different ecosystems that can provide different kinds of value, right, through their utility in their platform. What Meta's doing, what Microsoft is doing is they're not going the hub model, right? They're going full walled garden. They want to own your entire metaverse experience, right? And I think that can provide
Console wars.
console wars, exactly. And I think but think of the console wars, right? Tremendous innovation. We got incredible AAA games out there,
Mhm.
and I think it just pushed everybody to keep on innovating, which is great. But on the other hand, you know, when you have these tech behemoths that do control information and are able to leverage data in scary ways, I think there's a risk here, in both a push and a pull perspective in terms of how much data folks are going to be, because remember, everything is for the most part verifiable on chain, on the blockchain, all your transactions, all your interactions for the entire lifetime of your account since inception, right? So there's going to be a risk of data being pulled in, but I think there's going to be a risk of data being pushed out to metaverses that just take all the fake news narratives that are out there now and think about how much more amplified that could be when it's no longer just fake news that you're reading on your computer or your phone screen, and it becomes something that is your immersive environment, perhaps in virtual reality, like in Quest, right? I think there's that to keep an eye on. But sorry, maybe I'm going a little bit too boomer on this one.
All tools, man, all tools can be used as weapons. That's something no one should forget in this space. Is all of this is emerging technology, but we have to be aware of it being used as a weapon. It's going to be. It's not a question of if, it's when, and we have to be aware.
Yeah, and when you actually, one of the things I've been following is a lot of governments are either confused or nervous about the evolution, the growth, the adoption of cryptocurrencies, especially the privacy tokens we were talking about before. And why do the privacy tokens scare them? Because they can't track them. But on the other hand, why does the blockchain also seem very appealing to some governments is because they can see everything. Right now, governments can't necessarily see everything you do. If you buy with cash, it's very hard to track. Even if you buy with a debit or a bank card of some sort, that doesn't mean that they have ready access to that information. It's only certain types of information that have to be reported to them. But if a government were to make a central, a central digitized, I know I messed up the acronym, but basically their own cryptocurrency, and it was mandated, say we make a digital dollar and we use that to replace the current paper dollar system. And then the government can see everything you buy, everything you do. They get a little bit of a pattern of life. Now, of course, I'm not saying anything bad would happen because of that, but you always have to be concerned that that does provide an opportunity to be abused. Governments aren't always known to respect privacy or to respect limits of their powers. So I think Mr. It's not an invalid point. It's not a bad point to make, and it should always be a concern when you see billion-dollar companies wanting to enter the metaverse. It's certainly not out of the goodness of their heart.
Wouldn't that be nice? If they were doing things out of the goodness of their heart, right?
They just want all the money.
Of course, yes. The bottom line. So we were talking a little bit about metaverse projects earlier, and you talked about Decentraland. I do want to say, if you guys have never visited a metaverse, Decentraland's a really easy one to check out because you can just Google Decentraland, one word, and you can log into it. You don't have to use your Ethereum wallet, but you can log into it as yourself on Ethereum, and then you can check it out in a web browser. That's it. You don't need to download anything. And to me, that was pretty incredible. The first time I did that, and I thought, wow, this entire world. And then I haven't I've only tried one other one. I'm going to just full disclosure. I don't know honestly how many of them are that mature, right? But it was actually this past week. Some of us within RCC went and checked out one. It's called NFT Worlds, but they did something clever where they built 10,000 worlds based on Minecraft, right? But the worlds exist on Ethereum. And so they were hosting an event where we could go and fight people and fight each other. So a bunch of us went in. We built this really glorious looking house. We got lots of cool gear. We spent about 3 hours doing this. And then we got jumped by a bunch of guys in diamond armor. They burned down our house, killed all of us in about 2 minutes. And that was my first big adventure into the metaverse. We wasted about.
I was not invited.
Yeah,
I'm mad now. I'm sorry.
I'm sorry, Tom. It's all right. We all died, so it wasn't a good outing. But
next time,
if anyone wants to join us on future forays, I want to put out there. Please do. There's no cost to join. Where we got a little clan going. It's pretty fun trying these out. Or if anyone has any interesting stuff on Decentraland too, or if there's other metaverses that I'm not tracking, please, we would love to check them out and maybe talk about them in the future, because it's such a kind of fast evolving space and there's a lot to see. For example, I've visited art galleries on Decentraland or on other Web3 platforms where you just walk through the gallery and someone has all of their NFTs up framed and you just walk through, and if there's audio, the audio can play, video. It's really quite clever. But, and to bring this all back, I think the one thing I wanted to talk about is, okay, if you don't trade NFTs or maybe you don't trade anything metaverse, why should you care about this? And I think there's 2 points I want to make. One, the mainstream acceptance of NFTs. So before 2021, Tom, what would you say was the on-ramp into crypto for a lot of people, like the low-hanging fruit, the thing that really kind of drew people in because it wasn't your normal crypto?
Altcoins, just random altcoins.
Right.
Yeah. XRP was a big one. I feel like Bitcoin Cash was a big one. It definitely wasn't NFTs until last year.
Yeah, and then they just exploded. And I think what makes the NFTs unique, and I don't see them going away, but they're something that can appeal to anyone. Right? You're talking artwork, you're talking music. These are the things that make us feel alive. People will spend money on that. And not just that, but your digital identity, right? People want to feel good about their profile picture, about their username. Think about how long you probably took to develop the name that you use online. Maybe it was an evolution. Maybe through your life you pick different names. And same for your profile picture. People want to have something that represents them and how they feel. So that's number one. But number two, if you're trading on these chains, especially Ethereum, you want to know when a new project is dropping, because that's what's driving up your gas. When people are minting a million things because some new hot project dropped, yeah, that's a very good chance that's what is making Ethereum so expensive.
Decentraland for the first time while you were talking. That was way easier than I thought it would be. I just typed in Decentraland on Google and now I connected my MetaMask and now I'm here running around.
It's wild, man. To me, it really was wild to see that and to see it running in a web browser, and I'm not hyping it. I'm not saying you should go out and buy.
I've spent nothing.
Yeah. You don't have to spend anything to go in it, right? But don't go and ape into these things just because we talked about them. It is pretty neat to see what I would consider the future. We also had a few tips we wanted to share quickly, and then it's getting to the top of the hour. We might want to switch into the Q&A. But if you're looking for tips on trading NFTs, here's just a few. Not just NFTs, but metaverse tokens, NFT tokens of any sort, anything kind of pseudo NFT. First, you're going to find, and I really hate that projects do this, but many of them will have a whitelist, a wait list, a whatever, a list that you have to get on if you want to be the first in line to mint. Because what they do is they might have a website you go to, like pfp.com, and you go and there's going to be 10,000 PFPs that can be produced out of the project, and you would pay X amount of Ethereum to mint that PFP and get a random one. It might be rare, it might not be rare. That's the gamble you're going to take. But they'll make you do stuff like, hey, come into the Discord and then you have to invite 10 friends to get onto the whitelist. Well, I leave it up to you to decide whether or not it's worth it. It's pretty common. It's in almost all of the projects at this point that I've seen for NFTs. So I think it's kind of shifty. It's terrible business model, but it's sometimes one of those things. So a tip, if you have 5 other friends that are into NFTs and want to do the same thing, you guys can kind of cooperate on that a little bit. And then if one person gets onto the list, you guys can share that. Second one, this is just to help you understand. There's something called floor price. Floor price just means what is the cheapest item in that collection that you can buy right now today. So if there's 10,000 of PFPs in a particular gallery, let's say, all of them are 1 ETH, except one person is selling theirs for half an ETH, then your floor price is half an ETH. And so what a lot of people do is they monitor, the projects they like, and they'll look for someone to put something up cheap. And it happens more often than you think. Look for someone to put something up cheap, and they'll jump in and grab it quick. Number 3, some NFTs come with utility. This is something we didn't talk about a lot, and it's kind of a growing narrative within NFTs, which is I don't just want a picture. I want my picture to do something. Some of them are that you get some sort of secondary income. Maybe you stake the picture, or you stake the NFT to get some sort of tokens passively. Some of them give you access to special services, and then others, I think, like the Bored Ape Yacht Club and some of these other, really big projects, they get all kinds of benefits, right? They might say, hey, get you a whitelist, or get you onto a list for another project early so you can mint. Or get you into special events in real life, right? You can only come if you're an owner of one of those NFTs. Or even recently, I saw someone, I believe it's in Las Vegas, they're going to open a NFT museum. I don't know how it's going to do, but you need an NFT to get into that.
But that seems like a good use of them, a verifiable identity.
Actually, I have a question, Tom. When you went to that NFT conference, did you get an NFT as your badge or some way to scan in?
A missed opportunity.
Yeah, well, that's happening. Absolutely. Yeah, that's happening today, right? And there was NFT World, I think, in New York just a couple months ago. I do believe they were using that. I have spoken with the organizer of that, and I know that he has done that in the past. I didn't attend it, so I didn't know, but
Yeah, and I love it
I was just interested. Yeah, there's a use case right there, Frank.
because Tom Crown's NFT is his face. He just puts his face on the badge. A couple more, and then maybe we get into, and then we'll do the Q&A. One, be careful. Just like in DeFi, web apps that you interact with, say if you're going to mint some NFTs, they can be malicious. They can be trying to steal stuff from you. Some NFT projects, Rug. There's a lot of different things you got to watch for. Anytime you are interacting with an app, anytime you are hitting approve on any chain to do a transaction, make sure you read what's going on. So be careful there. And then the final tip is when you're looking at NFTs, one of the top things you want to look for if you're just collecting, especially on these big collections where it's like, 5,000, 10,000 pictures of something, procedurally generated, the rarity scores. So they'll have different types of traits. It might be a picture of a monkey and he might have sunglasses and maybe he's rainbow colored, and rainbow colors are really rare. Maybe there's only 5 monkeys with rainbows. Those usually demand more value because they're rarer. Just like in real life, rare things, if there's enough demand but not enough supply, then that's going to cost you more. Food for thought. If you're going to trade NFTs, try to do it smartly. Same with metaverse tokens. So that being said, before we go into the Q&A, I wanted to see, guys, is there any final parting comments you had in terms of NFTs or metaverse?
I mean, you just have to be careful. Treat it like the rest of the crypto market, Don't invest without researching, obviously. I'd say more so do a lot more research with the metaverse because it's a new growing space, and I think there's a lot of ways to get caught out in it as well, especially with using things like OpenSea and Rarible. So just verify the sources of these NFTs. Make sure you're not getting involved with anything that, has a bad light, and maybe try take it like at face value. Don't try to speculate on it because, the speculation will end up dying out at some point, and the ape phase will probably be over, and it'll slowly move to more utility. So just second guess your investment and make sure to really think hard about it.
You never get married to any investment except Bitcoin.
Exactly, and except Bitcoin. Well, I'm with Tom on that one, but to fly against the caution that everybody is giving right now, maybe my parting thought on NFT trading tips would be, if you are responsible and you do know that you have the funds to invest, that you can afford to lose, and you are cautious, there's nothing wrong with still taking essentially what amounts to a scalp or an arbitrage trade on an NFT, right? And for folks that are looking to quote unquote ape in, there is an opportunity to leverage sentiment analysis, the semantic analysis that Big Poppy teed up at the top of the podcast, which is social sentiment, right? Really Twitter. So if you're looking for the next big thing and you're looking for the hype and you're looking for where the price action is, you can certainly set up dashboards, social listening dashboards to filter by, say, NFT keywords and then overlay a sentiment analysis and just look for where the trends are. Look for where everybody is talking positively and aping in themselves, right? If you're in a short-term trade mindset and you're looking to scalp or arb something, or the equivalent of arbing it, right, I guess, on an NFT, I would be looking first to social signals. And then, in my opinion, I do think that Google trends do tend to lag behind social. So there might be an opportunity there. That would be my tip.
I'm jumping around at this Steve Aoki concert apparently on Decentraland, so I'm a little distracted. I just typed it in. I've never interacted with any of this, so it's kind of engulfing. So far, it's been super boring. I don't know. Maybe I'm not at the event. I don't know how this works, but I'm having fun messing around. One thing I wanted to make sure we did is we had some kind of stumble here into this episode. It was way better than the last one. But we have a bunch of viewers now, guys. We are live here every Sunday, so you can come in. We're going to have different topics. I hope you guys rejoin us next Sunday. Or this podcast will be available after. Uploaded to the link. It should be on the, pinned comment or something. It's Buzzsprout. We're on Buzzsprout and available on Apple Podcasts, Google Podcasts, Spotify. It'll be uploaded everywhere, and it is weareccpodcast.buzzsprout.com would be the hub to find this podcast after it's live. Podcast after it's live. Podcast after it's live. Podcast after it's live. Podcast after it's live.